This is Monocle on Design, a show where we unpack everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's special episode, produced in partnership with Range Rover, we talk materials. We hear from Phoebe Lindsay, Materiality Senior Manager for Range Rover. We explore how colour and texture can shape emotions and tell stories. Plus, how do we take a holistic approach to design strategy? All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's special episode produced in partnership with Range Rover. Over the next 20 minutes, you'll hear a talk recorded with Phoebe Lindsay in London. As Materiality Senior Manager for Range Rover, Phoebe is responsible for using materials to help tell Range Rover's story and further evolve the brand, all while staying true to the automaker's distinct DNA. Together with her team, she is pioneering the concept of modern luxury, balancing desirability with innovation while working on bespoke one-off projects and products for the market at large. For more, it's over to Phoebe Lindsay.
I'm a senior manager at Jaguar Land Rover, so within the Range Rover brand house, and I lead our materiality team, within Range Rover. So it's a huge privilege, actually, to lead the team. We encompass the whole product portfolio, obviously, so it's Evoque, Velar, Range Rover Sport. But then we also move into the special vehicles, the SV, and the bespoke capacity and offer. So it is very broad, and the characters, the vehicle characters that we have to work with, they're different. They have different souls and, different movement and different clients. So, it's a fun job to work with the team on the look and feel for these cars. Again, just coming back to the character, the nature of the application of materials across them and what we can do day to day to differentiate but keep within that brand.
I just want to get a little bit more clarity around this for our listeners.
Yeah.
Materiality, is everything?
So materiality, if you look at your vehicle or how you experience your vehicle, it comes back to an ambience, an atmosphere. Every element of the vehicle that you see or touch, we will work on. Materiality it's multifaceted. It's not just what you look at, right? It's the touch. It's the haptic again. It's the textural element that might move through light. It's the quality of the materials. It's obviously the colour, the pigments, etc. But again, just coming back to that, we designed for an atmosphere, which is actually a sensorial and an emotive response to design. It's not just the two-dimensional. So we play with elements of, balancing impact and refinement, for example, so vibrant colours and jewellery finishes, using those together, finding the perfect level of harmony for character and expression of that particular vehicle or project. And then, of course, balancing that between the interior and exterior of the vehicle. So that's a whole nother remit that we have to take into consideration. And, it does move into elements of the scent of the materials and how that might make you feel. So
it's literally everything from the shell, the exterior of the car, through to the feel of the steering wheel.
Exactly, that's exactly right. And sometimes, it's not the glamorous bit, but we absolutely are also involved with the technical, granular elements. So exactly that, actually, like the graining of parts and how particular areas within the car will play with the more hero elements, you'd say. So it's not just all glamour. There's a lot of logistics and feasibility and timing and everything to take into consideration. That takes a lot of time as well.
So basically, it's not putting together mood boards that are of nice materials. You're also thinking about the actual engineering and the performance of these as much as the look, feel, scent, as you say.
Absolutely, and that's key within our Range Rover house as well. Obviously, just to go straight into it, Range Rover is an icon, has been an icon since 1970, but it's an icon because it stands on its own in terms of capable design, capable luxury, and having that element of being able to use the vehicle in a specific way. Even it is the epitome of desirability within the SUV space. We have a responsibility really to ensure, of course, that all of our materials meet our standards. And it is a challenge to ensure that you're innovating, you're creating these luxurious materials, and you get quite attached to the outcome as well, which is really difficult. You have a vision of where you want something to be, and then there is times where, feasibility or durability means that we have to compromise. But we will never productionize or deliver a material that we feel does not meet the level of luxury and modernity for our car. So if we feel that the compromise has been too much, obviously we're going to have to make a decision around whether it's suitable or not.
We'll get to performance and innovation in a moment, two sort of things you touched on there. But I guess the other thing you've brought up early on is this idea of atmosphere. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about that and how or follow that thread rather, and how you kind of design for that. I mean, are you having... What are those discussions that take place, and where are there different atmospheres in the driver's seat versus the back of the vehicle versus the atmosphere as you approach it? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. I mean, it's a long process, actually. So firstly, of course, we start with a clear vision of what this project will be. We have lots of different scales of projects. It's kind of trying to determine, how this comes about for each of them. But it's a matter of really distinguishing this feeling, this sense, the emotions that are driving the character of that particular project, and it can be probably related back to some of our bespoke vehicles and the additions that we designed for certain regions. We have to have integrated into the process a narrative and storytelling, and that allows us to create the vehicle in a very authentic way. So, yes, there will be a level of theme boards that helps us bring together our ideas on a page and to clarify and, to have clarity and single direction to where we think the ambition is going, or, the direction of travel is going for that particular concept. But again, just coming back to authenticity, that is the part of the storytelling and the emotiveness, the emotions, that really plays out in the way that vehicle will be portrayed, in the end. And it comes through in every element, through exterior body colour, developments using certain pigments and, micas or pearls that translate and tie to the reflections of light across water, or our embroidery within the interior of the vehicle telling a narrative. And it might be an abstract interpretation of that narrative, but it has that authenticity and that depth that really helps us to portray that emotion again and the ambience that we're looking for.
Can you give us a little bit of an example of those sorts of narratives that you want to tell? Like maybe is there a bespoke project you've worked on that speaks to this? Yeah,
so I'll probably use an example that's actually could be close to our hearts, coming from Australia. But Orpheus Edition was one that we've recently designed for the Australian market, with the Australian market, I'd say, hand in hand. And it was a lovely collaboration because the inspiration, of course, is Orpheus Island. It's a highly exclusive, very small island on the east coast of Australia. And using this beautiful gem of natural beauty for creating this, spinning, weaving this story around what we want to tell, how we perceive that place, to individuals that have never seen that before, right? Because we all know, although that's designed for the Australian market, it has a ripple effect across, the world in terms of who might see that example of our Range Rover bespoke capability. So we, again, designed a beautiful bespoke exterior colour. It was unique and represented the ocean around that island. The embroidery within the interior was an abstract interpretation of a wave-like graphic, and it tied perfectly to, again, the natural environment there. So there was only 6 units made of that edition, highly exclusive, highly desirable, and it was publicly known, actually, that the vehicle sold for over 500,000 Australian dollars. So you can imagine that, where these vehicles sit in terms of our offer internally within Range Rover. It's really at the pinnacle of what we do. And that narrative, again, that storytelling's ever so important.
We're talking storytelling here, but I also want to talk about emotion. I mean, how can you use materiality to impact our emotions? And what sort of emotions are you trying to bring out in people experiencing a Range Rover?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question because we have, again, such a diverse range of vehicles within our family, our Range Rover family. And if you look between something like a Evoque or our Range Rover and then Range Rover Sport SV, Range Rover Sport SV stands for something strong in the soul and the spirit of performance. You know, it's dynamic, it's striking, it has on-road presence, it has, stealth. It's designed to instill emotion in the clients who drive that particular vehicle. And that's done through geometric design of the vehicle, but on our side, we use materiality on every single element to instill that emotion. So exterior colour, for example, for that particular vehicle, the special vehicle offering, we rolled out an all-new innovation, which was our matte lacquer top coat on our exterior paint. We actually delivered a all-new paint line lacquer system to deliver that. And that mattens the exterior of the car. So we've delivered now carbon bronze as a colour and blue nebula. It gives you that technical, as soon as you see the vehicle, it's subconscious, but it gives you that technical element, that performance-driven element that subconsciously clients think, okay, this car, it stands for something. It stands for performance, but it also stands for innovation, right? And they go hand in hand in our world. There's areas on the vehicle like the all-new 23-inch carbon fibre wheels, for example, that first ever to market delivered on that car, and we worked with the engineering team and the supplier to apply the carbon fibre in a certain way that it would be fit for purpose. But the point is, again, that when you see the vehicle on these substantial carbon fibre wheels, never seen before in automotive again, it gives the character in it and it tells you that this is fit for purpose.
I want to build on that, and I think carbon fibre wheels is a perfect way in. We're talking also about innovation and materiality, and it's funny, a few discussions I've had with designers in recent years, if you ask them, Sabine Marcellus is the one that jumps out. I asked her, what's the most exciting thing about being a designer at the moment? And she says it's material innovation. It's paving the way for completely new forms, making what was previously impossible now possible. Maybe these carbon fibre wheels are a perfect example, never been done before. I mean, does that resonate with you? And what sort of potentials does that offer you in your role?
Absolutely. So Range Rover Sport SV is a really good example because we had a lot of firsts, first to market, first for Range Rover, first to automotive globally. The other one worth mentioning, which answers your question very well, is our 3D knit-to-form textile.
See, this is it. That's so exciting. Even just hearing that, I don't know what this is.
It was exciting for us too because, again, innovation is years in the making. It's not something instant. And so finally, when we got this over the line and it was delivered in the car and, launching the vehicle, it was so exciting, to be able to finally talk about it and see how this came about and how it celebrates the interior of the car. But so 3D knit-to-form textiles, it has been used in the likes of fashion. What we do is we 3D knit across the surface of the interior geometry, and then we thermoform the material to the surface. So basically it results in an elimination of seams. So there's a minimalisation in the complexity, visual complexity, which is very in line with Range Rover as a brand in terms of our reductionist approach. And we, of course, have a circularity, a sustainability story to tell, because when we're not cutting from off-roll material, we're reducing our waste, and therefore we're really moving in the right direction in terms of sustainability and material efficiency. So that was a huge innovation. Again, first ever seen in a production automotive car. And there's a lot more that we can do as well in that realm, in the space of 3D knit and fashion.
How does this play into Range Rover's own brand, the whole identity piece? Because I think this is what makes Range Rover so special. It's such a distinct, strong identity, such a, for want of a better expression, kind of controlled product line. How do you balance that with innovation?
Innovation sets us apart. Innovation puts us into the future. We have to place ourselves in the future because that is the direction of travel, obviously. There's, for example, exterior paint, where we have lovely, successful heritage colours in our palette that we celebrate. We look to our legacy, we look to our heritage for inspiration and to understand those successes. At the time that those paints were developed, like Sahara Dust or Olive Drab, for example, well-known heritage colours, they celebrated the technology of that time, right? So you could call it a constraint. Actually, it's a celebration of the pigments they had at the time and what they could do with the materials and the innovation at that time. We're in a different time, and we're designing again for timeless vehicles within our Range Rover house and principles and vision. We need to ensure that we maintain this desirability. You know, we're designing for timeless products that will be appreciated and loved for years to come. So we then should be looking around us now and into the future and working with partners that can give us that access to those innovations. And one of those is Uncaged Innovation. So we're working with Uncaged to work through some opportunities that we have around bio-based materials and plant-based materials moving forward. It's a space that we want to be in terms of sustainability and circularity, and it's important, again, that we have those partnerships. We work with the experts in terms of their knowledge around the basis of material development, essentially.
Part of it is to evolve, and it's about pushing material boundaries. How do you ensure that people still can identify that it's a Range Rover if the materials are changing and is it the atmosphere that doesn't change?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's funny because all of these, points are things that we come back to in the studio and ensure that we are maintaining a singular vision in terms of our Range Rover vehicles and our Range Rover identity and characters again. Colour's a really good example because we can reinvent colour without moving too far away from our heritage and where we want to position ourselves within the brand. Tan, a very traditional, could be perceived as a very traditional colour. We've reinvented time and time again to ensure that it sits with the redesign of the vehicle, the exterior design, the next generation of product, essentially. And it makes sense, again, coming back to that timelessness, reductivity, minimalism, but still celebrating craft, still celebrating the nature of true luxury and bringing in that attention to craft. And another example is British Racing Green, like something that many people mention to me time and time again, including my husband. I said, there is other colours, but it's one that we have reinvented and you wouldn't know. General clients wouldn't actually know the nuance.
So how has it been reinvented? Run us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so looking at the tone of blue to green, for example, or the blueness of the green or the redness of the green. So moving into a different space and also, again, coming back to the depth of the pigments that we can use, so giving it more life and travel. When you look at Range Rover's body, essentially, today, we have to celebrate the surfaces, the nature of the exterior, and we do that through the highlights and the shadows and working with colour in a way that, again, gives us a picturesque version of that vehicle.
I want to talk a little bit about process as well. I mean, this idea of a holistic design strategy and, materiality being there at the start and ultimately at the end of a design process. Why is that important? And what's the danger if Range Rover doesn't take that approach? It's
a really good question. So we have to ensure when we're collaborating within the creative studio that we have considered, again, that there's this interplay between all of our functions, all of our responsibilities. We can't work in silos, essentially. We need to ensure that our vision plays out in every remit, collaborating with every other function that is a part of this creative process. That's a part of it. And another part of it, again, is, innovation and the time that it takes to innovate. You can't underestimate the time that it takes to innovate and allow that creative journey and creative process to take place. By having that holistic strategy and, again, through the collaboration, the vision, the understanding the materiality then of the product, holistically we can ensure that this is a successful delivery, a successful creation in the end.
I really like that point on not siloing design and discipline and kind of keeping everyone together, which I assume is kind of reflected in the studio space that you work from. Let's come full circle. Let's come back to your role. I mean, are there bits of being in this studio that are perhaps a little bit unexpected, parts of your role that people wouldn't know about?
Yeah, so actually many people don't know that we have a very successful, fully functioning bespoke service. And materiality team, so individuals in my team play a major part in that actually. So, in terms of an unexpected element of my role, we work with private clients day in, day out, and we work hand in hand with them globally, so across the world, to curate the perfect expression of their personalised vehicle, essentially. So, you can only imagine, but we work with international royal household, sports people. Actually, recently did a commission with a client who was on their catamaran. So, it takes us all over the world, but actually, holistically, it's a very interesting and multifaceted part of our role, and it's something that's somewhat unexpected. Within our team, we actually have graphic design specialists, and they work with technical experts internally as well in terms of delivering personalisation and embroidery. We have highly complex artworks that we'll interpret for our clients. So there might be an art piece we've had before. An art piece might be shared with us to interpret within the vehicle, and we have to translate that from a digital space into a physical space. And we do that through graphics, obviously, sharing with them a two-dimensional render so that they can perceive what that might look like in situ. We're really pushing the boundaries in terms of this personalisation and this artwork creation that we can deliver within the team through the specialisms that we have. Actually, we designed a vehicle for Design Miami in the US last year. We delivered creativity on that vehicle that we have never delivered before, and there was this lovely balance between innovation and luxury, again, that we've talked about quite a bit in this session. So, for example, we had on the vehicle 18-karat gold 3D printed script badges. They were actually manufactured in Birmingham with a jeweller. Being 3D printed, we were able to optimise the aesthetic, and it was actually a yellow gold, white gold flush badge, a new look for our badging, actually, for our branding. And also we used, of course, recycled gold. So there was some authenticity there again. But coming back to the personalisation as well. So we took inspiration from South Beach and the iconic sunrises that occur there, which I did, by the way, when I was there, go down at the crack of dawn and have a look at that stunning sunrise. But seeing it translate into the vehicle, so our graphic designers, they interpreted it in the most beautiful way. So we actually had the sun rising through the centre of the car. If you looked through the middle of the car, it was echoed across each panel of the seat and also in the headliner. So as if it would look up into the headliner, you see this sun rising again with this contrast thread embroidery. On the cushions, we took inspiration from Art Deco art and architecture of the local areas. And the cushions actually had 90,000 stitches per cushion, so you can only imagine how they were embellished. And, just coming back to that Art Deco point and inspiration, it's really interesting that we can take inspiration from local areas and the legacy and heritage in those cultures. However, that vehicle was a statement of modernity, again, sitting completely in line with our Range Rover identity, our Range Rover principles, and, we will not waver from that.
And I think what's wonderful this shows, I guess, the broader cultural resonance of Range Rover and what we've kind of talked about in this series is, I think you've kind of got these two arms of design at the moment that are really kind of strong and really prominent. There's still the industrial scale production where, people can go and, in this context, you can still buy a Range Rover, but then there's people also want bespoke, they want stories, they want themselves reflected in their objects and their vehicles that they own, and it feels like you're delivering on both fronts.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, coming back to what's so interesting about our role, we move day to day between ensuring that we're meeting the test specifications for our durable, capable Range Rovers and that they will not let our clients down in that space. And then we move into this complete creativity and storytelling around something so multi-leveled and, integral in the space of narrative and storytelling within Materiality.
My thanks to Phoebe Lindsay there, Materiality Senior Manager for Range Rover. And that's all for today's episode, produced in partnership with Range Rover. For more design discussion, tune into Monocle on Design, airing Tuesdays on Monocle Radio and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nick Manise. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.